This video is designed to introduce the remote signature capture tool to each agency and provider that will be making use of the tool directly through the ProviderSoft system. In order to make use of the tool, providers should already be familiar and fully trained on the steps to create electronic documents in the system and save those documents as drafts in order to allow them to be requested for an electronic signature. And if applicable, they should also be fully trained on how to create and save drafts of electronic session notes through our web app EMR process. I'll be demoing the ability to use forms or session note drafts to send those requests through a therapist portal. Please note that the same functionality is also available through your documents form drafts for administrative users as well. Please note that it is at the discretion of each agency to manage the training and support of all therapists and caregivers who will be making use of the tool. In general, please note the following functionality. Number one, this tool is only available for electronic notes or documents. This will not be available to capture a remote signature on if you have a separately created manual PDF that you are uploading into our system. The sender email address will be signature.request@ProviderSoftLLC.com, and the subject line will read signature request from ProviderSoft. It is recommended that you have your providers remind caregivers to check their spam email folders if they're receiving that request for the very first time. We also recommend that those therapists communicate to those caregivers when they will be sending the documentation over. Only forms and electronic session notes that are saved as drafts are available for remote signature capture. This means if they have been posted in their final form, whether a document or a session note, that individual document cannot be brought back into the draft status. A new document would need to be submitted. Only these providers will have the ability to send the electronic session notes for signature. Please note that any supervisors with access to the provider's drafts will not have this option. When you are sending a specific document outside of the electronic session note, please note that it will only be eligible for remote signature capture if it is associated with a specific child in the system. We'll be reviewing all of the steps to send and manage and track all of those signature statuses in the system, but please know in general, requests can be revoked at any time and resent to the parent or caregiver. The status of the remote signature is always available for tracking, and we allow easy sorting of a column to track the status in groups. And lastly, please keep in mind that the date, time, and or geolocation information that accompanies signatures on drafts of notes or documents will only appear if that specific document is set up to display that information. If you have any questions about specific documents, please reach out to your account representative. A notice was sent out about the change to our policy and procedures moving forward to ensure that unless specifically requested on a custom form, all parent signatures will by default include a read-only date, time, stamp, and geolocation. As a therapist, after I log into the site, we'll be reviewing first the option to send a regular form to a parent for signature, and then also an electronic session note. Under the Documents tab, again, your provider should already be familiar with choosing, generating, and saving as a draft one of these forms. For the purposes of this review, I'm just going to go ahead and enter in some generic information. If the form is downloaded separately from our system, it does become an external form. You do have to continue to edit the form electronically and save as draft once you are ready to complete and send this for signature. Once you click Save as Draft, the system will show you all of the existing drafts in your system. You will be able to see the creation date and also see the signature status. This column is sortable, so you can of course sort this in any order to group different ranges together. In order to request a signature for the first time, you will select the Request Signature option and type in your email address. Once that request has been sent, the status will change to requested, and edits are not supported unless the request is either revoked or completed. Once the request for signature has been sent, that document is locked down until that request is completed. At any point, you can click the requested link to see a full history of the changes, when it was sent and who it was sent to, and you can revoke a request at any time. This is the signature that I just revoked, and I now have the ability to re-request. I can add a new email address, and I can also see my initial request that was revoked in the information. Under the requested option, I can see that this is still open. Next, we're going to demonstrate just very briefly what the caregivers are going to be seeing on their version of this, just for clarity. This is an example of the signature request from ProviderSoft. It will include the provider's name, your agency name from the Control tab, and either the name of the form that was sent over, or this will say Session Note in general. We do recommend that you have a dedicated person to field any questions or concerns regarding the new feature as you begin to roll it out for the first time. To complete the request, caregivers will select the Signature Request Portal link. From here, they will have to have the child's date of birth on file. As long as the date of birth has been entered incorrectly, the caregiver will be presented with the document. It's important to know that any available signature fields will be available for them to capture, and the caregiver needs to understand specifically what they are signing off on at the time that you make the request. Caregivers have the ability to zoom in or out of the document, especially if they are using a mobile device. This can be very useful. The help link will bring them to a document that gives them steps on how to interact with this area. The Sign Here button will jump them from one signature field to the next, and if this is a multi-page document, this can be useful to jump them from one page to the next. If caregivers attempt to download the document before capturing any signatures, they will be warned that this does not include that information. From here, caregivers will capture their signature, as many or as few as are needed, and click Submit. There may be additional signature fields on the document that the caregiver does not specifically have to sign off on. They will be given a warning message letting them know that there are potential missing fields and to confirm that they want to move forward with the final submit. Users will receive a final success message, and please know that the information here at the top will also not appear on the live site. They now have access to the final document in the format that your provider will be seeing it. From here, they can choose to download a copy of the document for their files. Moving back into the provider's view, once that signature has been captured, the status will change to signed. Once again, users can select the signed link to see a complete history of that request, along with when it was completed. If an additional signature is needed, perhaps the caregiver only signed one of 2 sessions that were needed. A new request can be sent by sending another email address request through this form. It is always highly recommended that users check the draft by selecting the pencil to ensure that it was filled out in its entirety. Providers, of course, can continue to make changes if any corrections are needed to their own information, or if, for example, their own signature needs to be captured as well. In this case, I have a signature that is missing. So even though the draft is signed, I can select that signed link and I can send a new request to an email address for signature. Once that's been done, the signature status will change to requested. From the caregiver's perspective, the new request that they will be presented with will have the original signature that they captured present, and they will then have the option to capture additional signatures to send. In this example, now that the signature has been captured once more, the signature status has been transferred back to signed, and looking again at the history, I can see that it was completed and re-signed on multiple occasions. Next, session logging. For any items that are saved as a draft, I'm going to go ahead and create a draft note as an example. Your users should already be familiar with whichever workflow you've chosen to allow them to complete this information through. Once the note is saved as a draft, whether through the populate a session note or post a single session workflow, the steps are exactly the same as under the Documents tab. You have the ability to sort by statuses and can click the link at any time to send the request or to view the status of the request. If you have any questions about the workflow, functionality, or need assistance troubleshooting, please feel free to reach out to your account representative or support at ProviderSoft LLC for assistance. Thanks so much for watching.